When it comes to Kenner Star Wars action figures, everybody's got their favorites. What are mine? Hey Star Wars fans, welcome back to another video from All Things Star Wars Considered. I'm your host Doug, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 vintage Kenner Star Wars action figures. Now, when we talk about the top 10, obviously this is very subjective. Everybody has stories from their childhood. Everybody has their faves. Everybody has a figure that evokes some sort of nostalgia from when they were growing up. And I'm no different. I've watched a ton of top 10, and I'm always amazed at how different they all can be. I'll watch one and I'll be like, how did you put that figure in the top 10? But you know what? They have every right to put that figure, because when I give you mine, although I don't think they're over the top, I think there'll be a couple in there that you might go, why that one? But again, it's my top 10, not the top 10, but my top 10. And it's not always about the sculpt. It could be just over a fond memory, how it falls into the whole scheme of collecting. There's a ton of factors that go into it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we get started, as I was putting this list together, there's always a couple of stragglers right at the end that you're kind of trying to decide. So we're going to do a top 10, but we're going to do two honorable mentions. And let's get into that right now. The first honorable mention is the Emperor. Now, I wanted to put the Emperor in the top 10. I really did. And I think, based on how late he came out in the run, I think if they had done a cloth goods Emperor, he might have cracked the top 10. But because he has this split leg thing, lower robe thing, almost like the Obi-Wan, it was like they didn't progress. Kenner in 78 put out Obi-Wan kind of sort of like this. I thought they had gone further than that in the 6 years since they had put out the original 12. So for that and that reason alone, the Emperor falls out of the top 10, and he's just an honorable mention. Now, here's another figure that I really wanted to crack the top 10, but there was just too many good figures in front of him, and it is the Imperial Stormtrooper. Now, I love the Stormtrooper, and I think ultimately just the 4 points of articulation popped him out of the top 10. If there was a little bit something more they could have done with the head so that it turned, maybe even added a pauldron later on and made him a sand trooper, he might have cracked the top 10. But for those reasons and those reasons alone, he falls to number 11. All right, stay tuned. We're going to get into the top 10 next. Okay, let's start the whole thing off. Now, number 10 may surprise you. Not that he's in the top 10, but you might think he would be a little bit closer towards the middle of the pack, or maybe closer to number 1, but I'm sorry. Number 10 is Boba Fett. Now, I love the character of Boba Fett. Obviously, I dressed up as him for a celebration in Chicago back about 5 years ago, and I would have loved for him to go a little bit higher. And I think if they had put Boba Fett out in Return of the Jedi and kind of revamped him almost the way Stan Solo did, he would have gone higher. But this whole, I don't know, the yellow gauntlet with the red and just the color scheme just kept him out. The coloring is kind of wrong for this character. I love the figure. I sent away for multiples when I was a kid. Love the character. Love the kind of the bounty hunter, that the notorious nature of the character. But just because he was put out so early in the run, he ends up just at number 10. Sorry, Boba Fett fans, but Again, if Stan Solo, Boba Fett, Return of the Jedi kind of was in the line, he would have factored in a lot higher. So, number 10, Boba Fett. Number 9. This one was kind of a toss up. I went between this character and number 8. They could have flip flopped. But number 9 is Chewbacca. Now, Chewbacca's an original 12. And, you can't have him in a top 10 without him being there. I think Chewbacca would have ended a little bit closer towards the middle of the pack if they had revamped him for Return of the Jedi. I mean, he's iconic, but this 78 sculpt by 85 just was outdated. It's too bad Kenner couldn't have stuck around a little bit longer and revamped this character. And for that, and that reason alone, he ends up at number 9. Okay, number 8. Like I said, it was a toss-up between this character and Chewbacca, but ultimately I had to put this character over Chewbacca, and for various reasons. One, obviously, he's the most iconic villain in film history. So you have to have Vader in your top 10. Now, the reason Vader didn't end higher up, closer to number 1, is because the vinyl cape. Now, if they had put this figure out in Return of the Jedi with a cloth goods cape, if they had removed this telescoping lightsaber that slides out of his arm, if they had him with a hand that could hold a lightsaber, he would have went much higher. But because of that and that reason alone, Vader is number 8. Sorry, Star Wars fans. I wanted to put him higher, but the vinyl cape and the telescoping lightsaber just couldn't get him over the hump. So, sorry. Okay, now you've noticed the first couple in the top 10 are all early released figures. Obviously Vader, Chewbacca, and even Boba Fett was released at the very, very beginning. So we want to get some Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back action going here. And I want to try to be fair to all 3 films. And I wanted to get a hero into the top 10. So here we go. Lando Calrissian Skiff Guard disguise. Now, I love Lando. The Bespin one is okay. The general one is okay. But let's be honest. When you're talking about Lando, this is such a cool outfit. And this was Kenner's first foray into removable helmets. Now, you can't go wrong. It's a great sculpt. And I just loved, as a kid, when they had the commercial, and he went, "Surprise, surprise, I'm Lando in disguise." For that reason, and that reason alone, Lando is number 7. Okay, we're approaching the middle part of the lineup. All right, 4. Number 6. In keeping with the last entry, we're going to go with Princess Leia Bosch disguise. Now, there's obviously a New Hope Leia is a great figure, but it was so early on in the run that there were some things that were lacking. By this point of the line, they really had figured some stuff out. This was one of my favorite figures growing up, just because you could use this as a second character. You could just put the helmet on this character, put it in any display, and say, "Oh, it's just a bounty hunter." But the fact that this figure had the removable helmet, what a great figure. You know, Princess Leia infiltrating Jabba's palace to rescue her love, Han Solo, in this outfit. Fantastic. Love this. And a couple of little unknown facts. Some people don't realize this. This gun actually sits like at her hip. You pick the arm up, slide the gun in, and then lower her arm, and it stays in place. One other thing, let's see. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about this figure is that the helmet actually sits on her back. A lot of people don't know that. That was a way to kind of like store the helmet. Like if you were going to display her and you just wanted her standing in, in a display, the helmet just sits right on her back, on that little backpack. So a couple of little unknown facts, probably known by most, but if you're seeing this for the first time, yes, Princess Leia's helmet sits on her back like that. And like I said, you lift her arm, you slide the gun in, and then lower her arm, and the gun just kind of sits in place. It's kind of, the helmet's kind of in the way. But in any event, Princess Leia, Bosch disguise, number 6. Okay, now this next selection, number 5, might throw some people off. I'm sure everybody's expecting Han Solo in the top 10. What would a top 10 be without Han Solo? But what may surprise you as who my choice is going to be. Han Solo Hoth. Now, obviously, A New Hope Solo, the Bespin Solo, Trenchcoat Solo, all great figures. And I've even mentioned in some of my past videos that I love the hand carbonite. But for some reason, that figure in the hand carbonite just didn't work. The carbonite block was cool, but the Solo didn't. This is an iconic representation of the character. And one of the coolest things about this, I don't know if you can see it, but we're going to bring it up, is his holster on the side actually held his blaster. So you could stand him there, you could put him in the tauntaun, literally have him holding the tauntaun reins, and his gun is at the side, it's at the ready. And then it just pop it out, and in his hand it went. And look at that. So, sorry, I just have too many fond childhood memories of Han Solo Hoth. Me and my buddy playing with him at the Imperial attack base, putting him in the tauntaun, having the split belly tauntaun, rescuing Luke from the Wampa. Just too many great memories. So, number 5, Han Solo Hoth. Making our way to number 1. Okay, at number 4, another hero. Luke Skywalker, Bespin Fatigues. Now, I love this figure. Now, I definitely could have picked Farm Boy Luke, but you want to know why I picked this figure? It was, I don't know, they made some nice changes. They pulled that telescoping lightsaber. Remember I said earlier that Vader might have scored higher if they had, given him a cloth goods robe later on and actually allowed him to hold his lightsaber? This figure also came with 2 weapons. This is the first figure to come with multiple weapons. It came with the lightsaber and it came with his blaster. This was a great figure. I have so many fond memories as a kid, as a child, playing with this figure. And for that is why he's cracked the top 5. In at number 4, Luke Skywalker, Bespin Fatigues. We're approaching number 1. Who will it be? I don't know, but let's get to number 3. Yoda, the Jedi Master. Another figure that came with multiple accessories. He comes with the cloth goods robe. He comes with his orange snake. Later on, they changed it to a rubbery brown snake. This is a hard plastic orange snake. He comes with his Geimer stick, and he comes with the belt for his robe. Now, this figure is so iconic, and I sound like Hasbro using that iconic word. They use it on everything. So let's try not to go down that road anymore. But the thing I like about this Yoda is I think you could put this in a modern display with all Hasbro figures and it would still fit in. I mean, it's that well done. This figure came out in 1980. Think about that. This figure has been out for 44 years, and to this day, it still holds up. I think if you wanted to put it in display, maybe you remove the snake because that's a little gimmicky and a little, childlike. But this figure is fantastic. I wish he could have gone a little higher, but there's two others in there that just hold special places in my heart. And for that, they bump him out of the top spot. But trust me, he was very close to being number one. On to number two. Now, this is going to throw everybody off. And it actually threw me off, I got to be honest. Because you probably know, or you think you know, who number one is going to be. Well, think again. Number two is the Jawa. Yes, I had him at number one, and then I said, stop being so close-minded. Stop being so predictable. Everybody's going to figure you to have the Jawa at number one. And it was very, very, very close. Now, this was my absolute favorite figure as a kid. You all know that. I loved his cloth goods robe. I loved his blaster. Oh, he dropped it. Doesn't always hold it so well, but yeah, let's pop that in his hand. Yeah, he doesn't even want to hold it, but look at this figure. I just loved his profile. You put him in the land of the Jawas. You spun him on that little lever, and boom, R2 fell over. And then you grabbed a couple other Jawas, and you made the Jawas carry R2 back to the cardboard sandcrawler. Look at the eyes. I mean, just such a great figure. And I'm not going to use the I word. Okay, we're on to number one. What on earth could it be? I almost don't know. Of course I do. Stay tuned. Okay, here it is. Number one. This might surprise some people. Other people might not be surprised at all. But what character was in all the Star Wars movies? Every one of them. There's two characters that made appearances in all the Star Wars movies. No, it's not C-3PO. It's R2-D2. The reason that he bumped the Jawa out of the number one spot is because this is the first Star Wars action figure I ever received. It was an Easter present from my grandmother in 1978. Maybe even 79, because I don't know when Easter fell that year, and I don't know if this figure had actually made it out on cardback at that point. He was a part of the early bird set of figures, and then he was released sometime in 78. I got him as an Easter gift, and before you ask, no, this is not the one. My original R2-D2 lost his sticker. Oh, he was destroyed. And you all know that I started collecting later on. So this figure came later on, but this was the first figure I ever owned. And for that, he's number one. How could you not put R2-D2 in a top 10, a top 3, and well-deserved of number one? So that's my top 10. Thank you for watching, and let's wrap things up. Well, I hope you enjoyed my top 10. Obviously, it's going to differ from just about everybody else. I was actually doing a little research for this, and I asked my buddy George, and his top 10, although he had one or two in there, his list was completely different from mine, and for all different reasons. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. We're all different. We all have favorite figures. We all have figures that hold special places in our heart. And for that, you can't fault or blame anybody for their choices. That was my top 10. I'm sure a few of them might be in your top 10, but, everybody's different. There was 100 figures and, 90 figures didn't make that cut. So, going to wrap things up. Want to thank everybody for the continued support of the channel. Obviously, you guys are the reason why I do what I do. If you haven't done so, I ask you to hit the subscribe button so I can continue to bring you that valuable Star Wars content we've all come to know and love. If you like what you see, give the video a like. Obviously, like I always say, that helps the channel as well. If you have a comment, a question, maybe want to add your top 10, please leave them in the comment section. I'll happily get back to you like I always do. Want to thank everybody for watching. Tell everybody to have a great day, and we will see you on the next video. May the Force be with you. He is the champion, my friends.